A nut slips from a squirrel's paws, and the whole yard suddenly feels different. That pause matters more than the drop itself. From squirrel height, a new object can change the shape of a familiar path. The dropped nut is not the whole story, it is the clue that the yard changed first. On most mornings, this fence is not just a fence, it is a route. But today, the same route has one new shape in it. The nut stays where the moment changed. To us, it may be only a glove left after gardening. A squirrel does not need a speech bubble to show a decision. The ground below may be close, but close is not the same as safe. A backyard can look still to us and busy to a squirrel. Nut below. New object ahead. Safe cover behind. First, it tests the safest direction with its body, not its feet. A tail flick can mark the moment attention sharpens. The person at the window may not notice the tiny clue at first. The strange part is not that the nut fell. It is that it stays there. When the route changes, the tree becomes the safer question mark. The fence carries old signs too. Claw marks, scent, and repeated paths. Yesterday, this corner was empty. Today, it has a new shape and a new smell. Higher up, the squirrel can read more of the yard at once. Different squirrels may use the yard differently, but they all read changes. Still, the first clue remains on the ground. A direct line is rarely the smartest line, so it circles the problem instead of crossing it. The new object may be shape, scent, shadow, or all three. The human finally sees the nut, but the squirrel has already read the scene. The normal fence lane goes quiet. From inside the hedge, the yard becomes a set of hiding places and open gaps. Then another small movement changes the answer. The nut is close. The decision is not. Even a smaller visitor reads the open patch before crossing. The gray squirrel watches other movement too. From the window, it might look like the squirrel simply forgot. The squirrel is not only looking at the nut, it is checking landmarks around it. Then the clue changes again, and again, the nut waits. When nothing feels changed, the same squirrel moves very differently. Today, the body says, not yet. The feeder is not just food, it is a landmark in the squirrel's map. Fixed things make routes. Moving things change timing. Before it steps out, it samples the edge of the open space. The nose checks what the eyes cannot. Now the nut is close enough to touch, but the yard still has a vote. A pause can reset the whole plan. The nut has become a marker of every decision. Sometimes the yard changes again without anyone meaning to. After that, the open patch feels new all over again. It waits where bark, roots, and shadow meet. The safest line has moved again. This time, the squirrel uses the root shadow as cover. Stop, scan, move. That rhythm says the yard is being checked. The clue is almost food again. One last look comes before the bite. It did not forget the nut. It waited for the yard to make sense. But picking it up is only half the decision. The squirrel chooses the route with the most cover, not the shortest one. The old fence route stays empty a little longer. The nut is no longer just food. It is proof of a decision. A squirrel may drop food when attention suddenly outranks appetite. Now the question changes. Where does the squirrel take it? Even at the quiet corner, it checks before committing. It starts, stops, and changes its mind. The ground keeps the little record of that second thought. It carries the nut toward a landmark that is easier to remember. This time, the body settles. The dropped nut finally has a new place in the yard. Then the evidence is hidden again. After hiding it, the squirrel still checks the yard. The yard now holds one more remembered point. Back at the fence, the ground looks ordinary again, but it is not the same scene. Once the yard settles, the old route begins to reopen. The glove has not disappeared. The squirrel has simply updated around it. Later, the human tidies the porch, and the map changes again. With the new shape gone, the old gap looks open again. The squirrel does not need to know why it changed. It only needs to read that it changed. It passes, but it does not stop reading. Below the place where the nut fell has become just another mark in the grass. Later, a new nut makes the route test visible again. Confidence does not mean ignoring the yard. Same yard, different reading. Somewhere under the leaves, the first nut is still part of the map. It may not visit the spot now, but it has added the place to its day. Your yard may look like one space, but to a squirrel, it is many small zones. Next time you see dropped food, look for the changed thing nearby. It is easy to think the squirrel is just nervous, but the scene often has clues. The best role for us is often simply to watch from a distance. The closeness is emotional, not physical. By evening, the big mystery is almost invisible again. The hidden nut is not visible, but the place still matters. The first squirrel watches from a route only it truly knows. A dropped nut, a turned head, a changed object. Together, they tell the story. Even without a sound, the scene can tell you what changed. In your own yard, the clue may be smaller than you expect. Look at what the squirrel drops. Then look where the squirrel looks. A yard object does not have to be dangerous to become important. Back in the first yard, the little neighbor keeps reading. The viewer at the window knows to look lower now. Drop, freeze, look, detour, return. That is a story. The same place that held the mystery now holds the answer. And under the leaves, the first nut is part of the yard's memory. Tomorrow, the map will change again. If a squirrel suddenly drops food, do not only watch the food. Look for the paws, the tail, and the object that was not there before. The smallest clue can change the way you see the whole yard. Have you ever seen a squirrel suddenly drop food and look around? Sometimes the clue is not what the squirrel does next. It is what the squirrel does not do. The little neighbor has moved on, but the yard still holds the story. Under one leaf, beside one root, today's answer waits quietly. One dropped nut showed us the map that was there all along. Have you ever seen a squirrel suddenly drop food and look around?